News at 10. Well, making the headlines tonight, government has no plan to postpone Johor state election. Malaysia to take cautious approach before declaring endemic phase. Hello and good evening. Now, the Johor state election will not be postponed as the State Assembly has officially been dissolved and the polling date already announced. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob said the only way to stop the state election is to declare an emergency, which the government has no plans to reimpose.
Kalau kita start membuat darurat, maka kalau di Johor darurat, negeri lain tak darurat, tak boleh juga. Takkan Johor jangan darurat, negeri lain kita tak isytiharkan darurat. Dan saya dah mengatakan bahawa kita terpaksa hidup dengan COVID dan kita tidak akan menutup lagi pergerakan, kita tidak akan menyekat pergerakan rakyat dari segi rentas negeri, rentas daerah dan sebagainya. Saya dah kata bahawa ekonomi juga tidak akan ditutup. Kita dah buka ekonomi.
The Premier also reiterated the government's stand not to reimpose nationwide movement control order, adding that only targeted lockdowns would be enforced in places with a high number of cases. He advised all Malaysians to adhere to the standard operating procedures set to curb the spread of COVID-19 infections. Meanwhile, commenting on the proposal for the full reopening of the country's borders on 1st March, the Prime Minister said thorough studies needed to be conducted by the Health Ministry before any decisions can be finalised. According to Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri, the proposal by the National Recovery Council is yet to be discussed in the Cabinet.
Kita mungkin akan buka border, tetapi bila nak buka tu kita terpaksa dapat nasihat daripada kontraktor. Sebab betul dari border kita nak buka kerana nak bantu industri pelancongan, tapi kita juga mahu menjaga kesihatan rakyat negara kita. Kalau yang datang pelancong membawa jangkitan, ianya lebih mempercepatkan pertambahan tu.
Well, previously, the National Recovery Council has proposed for the full reopening of the country's borders as early as 1st March without the need for mandatory quarantine. But travellers must undergo the COVID-19 test before their departure and upon arrival in Malaysia, as per recommendation of the Health Ministry. Well, Malaysia is taking prudent steps before it decides to declare the country's transition from the COVID-19 pandemic to the endemic phase. Health Minister Khairi Jamaluddin said this careful approach included ensuring that COVID-19 cases in Malaysia, especially those involving hospital admissions, did not continue to surge.
Kita sedang memantau negara-negara seperti Sweden, Denmark. Tadi dalam ucapan saya kata kita lebih cermat di Malaysia. Negara-negara ini mereka, saya rasa pandangan saya, mungkin mereka terlalu awal mengisytiharkan pandemik ini tamat. Sebab saya tak nak melihat macam kes di Denmark contoh, dia dah mengisytiharkan bahawa COVID bukanlah satu ancaman kepada kesihatan awam, tapi kes hospitalisation mereka meningkat dengan mendadak. So saya dan Tan Sri KPK kita lebih berhati-hati di sini. Mungkin pendekatan kita orang kata lebih konservatif, ada yang kata terlalu konservatif, tapi bagi kami better safe than sorry.
He added the government might be more confident to move to the endemic phase if in the next 2 to 3 weeks the Omicron wave had little effect on hospital admission rates, with most cases showing mild symptoms. The Khairi said this after launching the mass urology surgery initiative at Hospital Selayang. Well, the setting up of standard operating procedures or SOPs for the upcoming Johor state election is now in the final phase and will be finalized and announced before the nomination day on 26th February. Election Commission Corporate and Communication Unit Officer Muhammad Azlan Charles Abdullah said the EC will announce the SOPs soon after receiving approvals from the Health Ministry as well as the National Security Council.
Yang akan keluarkan, yang akan mengumumkan pasal SOP itu ialah pihak SPR lah. Kita akan umumkan melalui kenyataan media akan dikeluarkan once kita dapat kelulusan daripada pihak-pihak berkenaan dalam kes ini seperti KKM, Kementerian Kesihatan dan juga Majlis Keselamatan Negara.
Previously, the EC fixed 12 March as the polling day for the Johor state election, while the nomination was set on 26 February and early voting on 8 March. The state election was called following the dissolution of the State Assembly on 22nd January. And now the figures. Daily new COVID-19 cases continue to climb, with 20,939 cases recorded today, bringing the country's total to 2.996 million. Now, the last time daily new COVID-19 cases in Malaysia exceeded the 20,000 mark was on 10th September last year, when 21,176 cases were recorded. Well, according to Health Director General Tan Sri Dr. Noor Hisham Abdullah, 99.44% of today's total of 20,821 cases were Category 1 and 2, while only 118 cases, or a mere 0.56%, were Category 3, 4 and 5. Asymptomatic patients, or those with light symptoms, are grouped in Category 1 and 2. Category 3 cases involve lung infection. Category 4 involve lung infection and require respiratory support. While Category 5 are critical cases, usually including organ failure and requiring ventilator support. A total of 1,055 schools will be used as vaccination centres, or PPVs, for the National COVID-19 Immunisation Programme for Children, or PIC Kids. Well, Deputy Health Minister Dr. Nur Azmi Ghazali said they will start operating by Monday, and jabs will be offered to students from those school vaccination sites or neighbouring schools. Well, according to Dr. Nur Azmi, the number of school PPVs is expected to be increased from time to time. He further explained that the school administration will provide a list of eligible children for COVID-19 vaccine shots. The vaccines will be administered by the school health team or private medical practitioners. To avoid congestion in school PPVs, only one parent or guardian is allowed to accompany their child for the vaccination. He also urged parents to register their children as dependents on the MySejahtera mobile application to get vaccination appointment dates and digital vaccine certificates for their children. For guardians without MySejahtera, the school administration will inform them about the date and location of COVID-19 jabs for their children. Dr. Noor Azmi said the Ministry of Education has also agreed to help arrange group appointments for vaccination in school or in vaccination centres identified by the District Health Office or the District Education Office for COVID-19 vaccination. Well, as the country is moving towards the endemic phase, civil servants need to set their aspirations and commitment with more forward-looking initiatives through the principle of SWIFT. Well, according to Chief Secretary to the Government, Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki Ali, SWIFT refers to speed, world-class knowledge, inspirational, flexible and technology-based.
Sebagai permulaan tahun baru ini, saya rasa elok kiranya kita hayati nilai speed, iaitu semua penjawat awam perlu bertindak dan membuat keputusan dengan pantas dalam sesuatu urusan demi merealisasikan aspirasi kerajaan yang mengutamakan prestasi dan juga berpaksikan keutamaan kepada rakyat. Sesuatu urusan.
Well, under the principle of world-class knowledge, Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki said civil servants should look into the best practices in other countries that can be emulated and set as a benchmark in getting things done. He also said it is very important for the secretaries general and heads of departments to be inspirational leaders for their subordinates, as they, as well as civil servants in general, must also be flexible and not too rigid on policies in order to ease and smoothen public service delivery. Under the last principle of technology base, Tan Sri Muhammad Zuki said it is equally important for civil servants to have technology-based knowledge and skills in performing their daily tasks. Coming up, back Negara to look into national housing issues. Stay tuned. Well, the amendments to 4 articles of the Federal Constitution relating to the rights of Sabah and Sarawak, which were unanimously passed by the Dewan Rakyat on 14 December last year, came into force today. Well, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Parliament and Law, Dato Sri Dr. Wan Junaidi Tuanku Jaafar, said the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, Al-Sultan Abdullah Ri'ayatuddin Al-Mustafa Billah Shah, in a Federal Gazette, had consented to the enforcement of the amendments to the 4 articles. The amendments enshrined in the Constitution for Amendment Act 2022 involve the list of the states of the Federation in Clause 2 of Article 1, the definition of the Federation and the new definition of Malaysia Day in Clause 2 of Article 160, the indigenous races of Sarawak in Clause subsection A, subsection 6, subsection A of Article 161A, and the removal of Clause 7 of Article 161A. The enforcement of the amendment will allow Sarawak to claim certain rights listed under the International or Intergovernmental Committed Report 1962. Well, it said negotiations to make several other amendments to the Federal Constitution will continue by taking into account the interests of all parties involved. Well, this includes a fairer distribution of parliamentary constituencies between Sarawak, Sabah and Peninsular Malaysia, as well as in the listing of the state government's technical agencies in the federal list to smoothen the implementation of development projects. Pilgrims only need to bring their identity card to any Lembaga Tabung Haji or TH branch to get payments from the government for the losses they incurred following the month-long temporary postponement of Umrah travel imposed since 8th January. The Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Dato Idris Ahmad, said the pilgrims do not need to register, as the list of those affected would be provided by the travel agencies that handle their Umrah trips. Explaining further, Dato Idris said TH will receive the list of names once it is provided by the agencies to the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. Deputy Minister in the Prime Minister's Department for Religious Affairs, Dato Ahmad Marzuk Shari, has recently said that the government would pay up to 60% of the losses incurred by pilgrims affected by the postponement of Umrah travel. He said the process to check the lists of the affected individuals was expected to be completed by the middle of this month. Bank Negara Malaysia, BNM, has stressed the need to look into housing issues, including dealing with the acute supply and demand mismatch in the housing market, as well as improving the transparency of home prices. Well, Governor Tan Sri Noor Samsia Muhammad Yunus said house ownership could not be addressed by financing alone, as most housing has become too expensive for many Malaysians.
We need to address this too, even as we embark on more innovative financing solutions. This includes dealing with the acute supply and demand mismatch in the housing market, improving house price transparency, and ensuring a vibrant rental marketplace is in place for those who are not ready or do not want to own a house.
Tan Sri Noor Samsia was asked to comment on new developments in lending facilities after the central bank was told by the government to review home financing models in order to facilitate house ownership for the M40 and B40 income groups. Well, she said banks have been highly supportive of house ownership initiatives, with loan approvals of more than 60 billion ringgit to first-time house buyers in 2021. Meanwhile, the decision to extend the application period for the Financial Management and Resilience Program, known as URUS, until 31st March was made after taking into account the flood impact on many households and businesses. Tan Sri Noor Samsia said some borrowers are still facing difficulties, even though most businesses have already resumed their activities and as the job market improves. Tan Sri Nur Samsia said the banking industry extended the URUS application period to ensure that support continues to be available to affected borrowers as they need more time to get back on their feet.
As the economy begins to recover, it is also important for us to shift our focus towards implementing the necessary reforms to raise productivity and income. Malaysia, we cannot afford to miss the boat, especially if we want to be competitive in the emerging spaces of opportunities post-pandemic, be it in the green economy, digitalization, or supply chain resilience.
The application for URUS is extended until 31st March for the eligible B50 income group customers who are on banks' flood relief assistance programs. Banks will continue to have ongoing restructuring programs to assist borrowers that continue to face financial difficulties. Malaysia's economy rebounded 3.6% in the fourth quarter of 2021, driven by higher external demand. And according to the Department of Statistics, overall Malaysia's economic performance last year revealed a recovery momentum of a growth of 3.1% compared to a decline of 5.6% in 2020.
On the supply side, all sectors recorded an improvement in the fourth quarter. The manufacturing sector registered a strong improvement driven by both continued strength in export-oriented clusters.
Meanwhile, on the demand side, Chief Statistician Dato' Sri Dr. Muhammad Uzir Mahidin said all expenditure components experienced positive performance except for gross fixed capital formation. He further noted that the country's economy was on a recovery trend during the period despite the disruptions caused by the COVID-19 and floods. The Agriculture and Food Industries Ministry, or MAFI, is targeting investments worth 350 million ringgit during the Sustainable Agriculture Week at Expo 2020 Dubai. Its Minister, Dato' Sri Dr. Ronald Kiandi, said MAFI, as the host, will lead the week's theme at the Malaysia Pavilion from 21st to 26 February with the Malaysian Bioeconomy Development Corporation as the implementing agency. In a statement today, Dato' Sri Dr. Ronald said the ministry is committed to achieving the investment target, among others, by fostering engagement and strategic partnerships with global players, especially with the United Arab Emirates and other West Asia countries, to further drive sustainable agriculture for Malaysia and the world. Well, it said MAFI will hold 11 memoranda of understanding exchanges, 50 potential businesses participation from 20 Malaysian small and medium enterprises and agencies under the ministry during the week. MAFI is set to attract an estimated 2,000 visitors and delegates during the Sustainable Agriculture Week, with various programs have been lined up. Now, these programs will be conducted based on 8 focus areas that highlight Malaysia's strength in sustainable agriculture, including biodiversity to wellness, fruits of the tropical climate and its byproducts, smart urban farming, as well as smart farming solutions. In sports, Setia back in training with BAM for upcoming Asian Team Badminton Championships. Stay. Well, Malaysia's singles shuttler Lee Setia is optimistic that the national squad will be able to book a spot in the final of the Asian Team Badminton Championships, or BATC 2022. Now, the world number 7, who has turned professional recently, has returned for training sessions with the Badminton Association of Malaysia, or BAM, for the tournament yesterday.
From the lineup, I think at least our target will be final. Yes, because considering the other teams, they just send the second lineup, and we send our best teams in this BATC. So I think our target at least in final.
Explaining further, ZGL said he is confident with himself and the national squad lineup to realise the target of reaching the final stage and automatically qualify for the Thomas Cup final round. In the BATC 2020 edition in Philippines, the national men's squad suffered a 1-3 defeat at the final stage against 3-time champion Indonesia. In this year's edition, Malaysia, who will be hosting the tournament starting 15 February, is in Group B together with Singapore, Japan and Kazakhstan. The end of tonight's News at 10, and headlines for tonight is government will not reimpose emergency to postpone Johor state election. Well, don't forget to tune in to Updates at Noon, coming to you on 12:30 afternoon, available on saluran Berita RTM and TV2. I'm Muhammad Amin Carlos. Thank you for watching. Good night.